Okay, so two areas here that we're going to cover today. Um, CAD drawing definition and import definition. So the drawing definition is where we go and we define the layers from the AutoCAD drawing. So like what layer is the space layer on? How do we get the space number for each of the spaces? What layer is the workspaces on? What layer is the space numbers on? Workspace numbers on? And then everything else that helps define the space, like the doors, the walls, the furniture, and stuff like that. We call that construction data. Okay? So in the drawing definition, we map out all these layers, how to read the layers where from the AutoCAD drawing. And then in the import definition, this is where we go in and import the actual drawing itself, right? When we import the drawing, we want to specify like what drawing we're importing, as of which date. And then when we import the drawing, we want to specify the drawing name and which property and floor it belongs to and stuff like that. So we're importing in the right area within the Planon application. Yeah? So I'll go through more in detail for each one of these, but that's what we're going to go through. And then once we've imported the drawing, we can see like the output of the the floor plan in spaces and workspaces, right? So we can go here, go to one of the buildings. I think I can do Angel Home, and then go to the floor, sort by floor, and then go to spaces, and then you would see the space records. And then on the top right, you can click on the CAD Integrator button here, and that shows you the floor plan and stuff like that. And you can select the floor plan and see all the spaces and so forth. Okay. So this is what the output should be like. You create the spaces or updates the spaces, and go to workspaces here, fix workspaces, creates and updates the workspaces, and then also see that on the floor plan as well and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the output. Okay, so let me drive back to the drawing definition. This is where we're going to start. So for the drawing definitions, Brown has a template already. And in the template itself, we have all the layers that we're going to use within all the AutoCAD drawings, right? So let me, for example, if I take this template and I go to the Business Objects tab here, and let's look at floors, for example. So the floors table, the floors business object. If I select that and go to details, for the floors itself, the layer for the floor polyline is going to be on the Planon gross polyline. So it's all capital Planon dash and then all capital gross, right? That's the layer name on the AutoCAD drawing. Consistency is key here, case sensitive and everything, right? So when you do your drawings, or when the drawings are done for you guys, you want to follow the same layer naming conventions, okay? Case sensitive and everything, because if like the first letter was uppercase and then everything was lowercase, right? It will not be able to find a match or something like that, right? So the case sensitivity matters, so it has to match, right? For this one, it's the floor polyline, so the polyline that goes around the entire area, the floor plate, so the grabs the square footage of the entire floor, right? So that's where that comes from within the application. If I go back to CAD Business Objects and we look at spaces, and I go to the details here, now the space polylines will be on this layer here, Planon dash space dash poly. Okay, so this defines each of the spaces within the AutoCAD drawing, right? And then within each space, we need to be able to retrieve a space number from the AutoCAD drawing. So if I go to field mapping here, and I look at this space number field, this is an M text. So the space number is on this layer, Planon dash space dash number layer, right? And it's M text. How I can tell it's M text because we have a start line and end line. So where we get the space number is on the first line of the M text itself. Okay. And then again, case sensitivity matters as well. And I've seen where customers, they define in their template here, they want to use mtext for the space number. However, when they create a new drawing, they use text instead. And then that will not bring in the space numbers if you just use text. So it has to match what's defined here. So that's why
Gotcha.
consistency matters, right? If you have some drawings where you have different layer names and then you're using text for the space number, and then some drawings where you have a specific layer names and you're using mtext for the space number, right? Then you have to define each of those different types of drawings before you're able to import them into Planon. So if you keep them all consistent, then you don't have to define all the different drawings. You just have to create a template, which we have here. And then we define all the layers within this template, and then we just use this as the import tool to bring in all the drawings. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here, let me go back. So the same for workspaces, right? So if I select the workspace table, go to the details tab, and then the workspaces are all on this Planon workspace poly layer. And then how to get the workspace number is in the field mapping here, where we get the workspace number. So the workspace number is on this layer, Planon-workspace-number layer, and it's also mtext. I can see here that because we're defining which line of the mtext we're getting the workspace number from. Okay. And then everything else we call construction data. Like if I select that there, go to details, and then all of these layers, the doors, the roof, the stairs, the walls, the fixtures, the columns, right? All of these, the construction data. They help define the type of space it is within when people visually view the floor plan within the application. They can see where the doors are, the stairs are, and so forth. So they help visually define the type of space. And if I go back to spaces and workspace module here, the TSI, and let me jump to the first floor again. And if I look at this and I turn on construction data, you can see here, the doors, the furniture, and then the stairs and so forth, the restroom area, stuff like that helps define the space. All that stuff is construction data.
Okay.
All right, so let me turn this off, go back to the drawing definition. Okay, so to create a new drawing definition, I'll create one from scratch. So I'm just gonna download this template here. So I have that template, and I'm going to add a new one. This is your dev environment, right? So I'm just gonna call it test. And then I'll upload that template again, and we'll map the layers together. So how we map these layers from scratch. Define where it will go. Put it in the inbox, click OK. And unit of length, I think in the US, most of our drawings are drawn in inches. The architects, they draw it in inches. We have the ability to select what unit of length for like international customers where they have it drawn in like millimeters or meters or something like that, right?
Okay.
But for us, most of the drawings will be drawn in inches, right? So we can save that. And then once we have this drawing definition, we can go to the CAD Business Objects tab. So then how we create the different mappings for the layers is we click on Add here, and then we'll start with the floors. Click on Save. And then once we have the floors, we can go to the details here. And then for the floor layer mapping here, we can pick that up here. So if I click on the pick list, I see all the layers within that template, within that AutoCAD drawing, right? I can select the layer for the floor polyline, click on Save, and you can see by default when you select that layer, it brings in the AutoCAD colors that's defined in AutoCAD, but we can always change it here. I can say, oh, you want to see in the application, oh, I want to see the drawings only in black and white or something like that, right? So the background is always going to be white, so we can change all the layers to be black or something like that instead of taking in the AutoCAD colors. So you can pick and choose which colors you want to display the different layers in. Okay. All right. And then if I go back to CAD business object mappings, I'll add, now we can do the spaces. So I'll click on save here. So we have that space table, the space business object. If I go to the details tab, so I select the spaces here and go to the details tab. Now on the CAD business object mappings, I need to define which layer the space polyline is going to be on, right? So for the CAD layer, the space polyline is on this one here, the Planon space poly. And again, by default, it takes in the AutoCAD colors, right? I'll just save that. And then for the space, how do we get the space number, right? So we have to go to the field mapping selection step here, the sub tab here, and then define how we get the space number, right? So for the space number field, we can define the layer that the number is going to be on. So the number is going to be on this Planon dash space dash number layer. And then it's an M text. So we have to define which line on the M text we want to look for, right? So it's going to be on line 1. So that means that's the consistency needs to be there as well for all the space numbers. You need to use M text, and it has to be on line 1, the first line of the M text. It should be the space number. I'll save that and then go back, and then we'll do like workspaces as well. So I can click on add, link to workspaces. And for workspaces, we have to put a user-defined type. And then if I select that pick list here, I only get one value to choose from, and I will select that. Click on save. Okay. For spaces, we don't have to define a user-defined type, but for workspaces, we do. Okay. And if I select workspaces, go to the details tab. Under CAD business object mappings, which layer is the workspace layer on? So then I would click on this CAD layer, look for the workspace polyline layer, save that, and again, takes in the AutoCAD colors, right? And then for how to get the workspace number, we'll go to the field mapping here, select that, and then the workspace number is going to be on the layer, Planon workspace number layer, and then it's going to be M text as well. So it's going to be the first line on the M text, and I'll click on save here. All right, and then everything else that we do want to bring in, we call it construction data. So click on add here, do link construction data, click on save. And then if I go to the details tab on the CAD business object mappings, I can add a building element layer here. And then I would map all the layers that I want to bring in as construction data. So you can see here, there's a bunch of layers here, and we don't need to bring in every single layer. We just want to bring in the layers that we do want to see within the application. So you don't have to map everything, just the ones that you want to see within the application, right? So I'm going to pick one here. I'll click on save, add another one. So the heavy lifting for creating drawing definitions is really in the construction data, because we have to map each layer individually, right? So if you have like, if your layer naming convention wasn't consistent throughout all your floor plans, and you had to create one of these drawing definitions per floor plan just to map all the layers, it's going to be very time consuming. That's why we recommend to have a template and then have your layer naming conventions the same, right? So that means that we just pick one here, click on save. And then
So I
that
guess
means that
would this really be more for, I guess, if you're like trying to set up a new set of plans, anyways, not really like making updates to the plan?
this would be more for like if you had an architect that had different layer naming conventions and they weren't consistent with what you're currently using, then you would have to create that for the new layer naming conventions, right? But right now
No,
you
but I
guys
guess like
have
the definitions anyways. So, I mean, I guess ideally if we're updating the plans that we already have, the definitions would already be set, correct? So this would
correct.
really just be
Yes.
for if I'm setting up a brand new floor plan.
Yeah, brand new floor plan
Yeah.
which had different layer naming conventions.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. If the brand new floor plan use the same layer naming conventions that you have for your other floor plans, then you don't even need to touch this. So you can really just use this and import all of your floor plans as
Gotcha.
long as
Okay.
you keep that consistency. But I just wanted to show you how this was mapped. So you get like the base of it, right? So you can see how it's designed,
Hmm.
so that when you introduce like a new layer for your floor plans and that's not mapped in your template here, that layer will not come into the Planon application. So then you will have to come into
Gotcha.
this and you have to add it to this templates, and then you can map that layer, and then as you go forward, that layer would then come into the application.
Okay.
So yeah, so here, if I go back to my test scenario, construction data details, so then here you would map all the different construction layers that you do want to see within the Planon application, and you do have to map them individually. So like I said earlier, if you introduced a new layer that you wanted to bring in, so maybe you had a floor plan that had like a mezzanine or something like that, that you had new layers that you wanted to bring in to the application, right? You can then modify your existing templates. So this template here, you can modify it. You can add that layer into the template. It doesn't need the template itself. It doesn't need to look like a floor plan. It just has to have that layer saved in there. Okay? So then you can modify the template, add the new layers. Then you can come in here, and then so I'll go back to my test scenario here. And then you can come in here and add that new layer. Say it was like the elevator or something like that, and then click on save. And then now you can use this template going forward to import the drawings again. The layers here that are mapped, it's okay if your drawings don't have all of these layers. Okay, as long as the drawings have, as long as the layers on the drawings are mapped here that you do want to bring in, then it will bring it in. So you don't necessarily, not all drawings have like a elevator or something like that, right? Maybe like the roof won't have an elevator or something, right? But you can map the layers mapped, but if the layer is not on the drawing, it's okay.
Okay.
And then when we click on this pick list to select the layers, you see like some with the asterisk, and then it's replicated without the asterisk, right? So it's really a duplication of each other. The ones with the asterisk are more for like XREF drawings. I don't think you guys use XREFs, but we do support, or we can support XREF layers as well. And what the asterisk means is it's like a wild card, because when you have an XREF, the layer is prefixed with the file name, and then you have the actual layer name, something like that. So making the XREF layers unique per file, right? So to get past that, if you guys did use XREF, you can map these layers instead of the ones without the asterisk, and then it will then bring in everything that ends with this particular value in the layer. Okay. All right. So once you're done mapping all the layers, you can make sure it's in the completed status, right? So you would click on complete on the right-hand side. Make sure you have a checkbox here. Um, so that's for the drawing definitions. And then the drawing definition is ready to be used. Okay. Okay. So the drawing definition itself is where we define the different layers that we want to map and bring into the application, right? So all these construction data layers, the floor layer, the space layer, the workspace layer. We can change the color of these if we want to, right? Before we import it. If you already imported a drawing and you wanted to change the color afterwards, you can come in here, change the color, but then you have to re-import the drawing again for it to reflect within the application. Okay? So any changes made to the floor plans has to be re-imported for it to reflect within the application. Okay? And then we have our field mappings here for space number and workspace number here. Okay. All right, so that's for drawing definitions. So make sure it's in the completed status. Make sure it has a checkbox. That means it's in the completed status, so it's ready to be used, right? Okay, so next we will go to the import definition. In the import definition, this is where we click the actual action to say like run the CAD import, so it actually imports the drawings within the Planon application and so forth, right? Okay. We have here listed out import definitions per person, right? So you would create one for yourself. This is so you don't conflict with other people that are actually importing drawings as well, right? So if you were importing drawings and Colin was importing drawings, right? And you don't want to use the same import definition because you would actually map the drawing name, what date you want to import it for, and then you would then import it. So you don't want to conflict with other people that are importing as well because they might have a different drawing name and a different date and so forth, right? So here we create a an import definition per person that's trying to import, and then you would use yours to import drawings going forward. So then it wouldn't interfere with others. Okay? Okay, so in the import definition, I'll walk through the fields briefly, but I'll highlight the important fields here. Okay, so here we have like the code and description. So you would put your name here in the code and the description, right? The drawing definition that we're going to use. So if I click on this pick list here for the drawing definition, you see that we're using this base floor plan drawing definition that we saw earlier. But then you also see my test one that I created earlier as well, right? So this is where you say which drawing definition do I use to identify the layers that I want to bring into the application from the AutoCAD drawing. Okay. So if all of your AutoCADs were consistent, right, then you only need one drawing definition, which you guys have. Okay. And then there's a property floor retrieval. How do we get the property in the floor? How do we know that this drawing belongs to this property in this floor, right? So then we do this here. So if I go to the mapping between drawing and floor, so this subtab here, you can see that all of the drawings here are mapped to the properties, the specific properties and floors, right? So this particular drawing name goes to this property and this floor. And then this is for the first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, and so forth, right? If I look at, what was I looking at? Andrew Hall here, right? So let me grab the property for Andrew Hall, go back to the import definition. I'll filter on that particular property. So for Andrew Hall, right? Here are the different drawing names for Andrew Hall. And then based on this, we map it to the different floors that it reflects to. Okay. So if you updated a floor plan and you changed the drawing name, for example, maybe you did like a version 1, version 2, or something like that in the drawing name, right? You would then need to come in here and update that CAD drawing name here as well. So it finds the right drawing, the newest, the latest version, and then it would import that in, okay? But to be consistent or keep the consistency, right? You should keep the drawing name the same and not have a version 1, version 2, or something like that. But if you did change the name, you would have to come in here and update it first before you imported the drawing. Okay, so to make sure that the mapping between the drawing file name is there for the property and the floor, right? Before you import any drawings, or else it would say, oh, I'm not able to find any, I'm not able to see where this particular drawing goes to, or this particular property or floor that it belongs to, or something like that. Okay. Okay, so for Andrew Hall first floor, this is the drawing name, and then this is the property and floor that it goes to. Okay. So if I go back to CAD import definition, so that's where we get the property floor retrieval. The effective on is going to be the date that we specify here. So the date that we specify here is important, right? Within the Planon application, in our space module, where we see the output of the drawings, we have a sort of like a time traveling capability, right? Where you can import a drawing as of like, say, January 1st, 2025, right? And when you import a drawing as of January 1st, 2025, say you had like maybe this whole area was like a conference room, one big conference room or something like that, right? And then you had some different spaces out here. And then say you did some reconstruction in June of 2025, right? Then you would re-import the drawing, updated drawing where you broke this conference room out into like the 8 different spaces here. and then you would re-import the drawing as of June 1st, 2025, right? Then when you see the floor plan, any date after June 1st, 2025, you would see the 8 spaces here. But if you wanted to say, oh, let me see what the drawing looked like back before it was updated. So back in January, you can come up here to the top right and change the reference date here to a different date in the past or the future or something like that, right? So you can change the date here, say January, and then now it would then reflect the floor plan as of this date here. So then you would see that big conference room or something like that, and not the 8 spaces or something. So we have the capability of doing like a audit trail or like a time traveling capability. So it tracks the changes over time for the floor plan itself. So how the floor plan changed over time, right? So we can track all of that. And to do that, let me change it back to today. To do that is in the import definition, oops, in the import definition, we use this date here to specify when the changes that we're importing the drawings are made, right? So if it's an initial drawing, if it's a brand new drawing, right, you would specify a specific date that maybe when you guys occupied the space, right, you would import it as of that space. And then going forward, as you update the floor plan, if any changes happen and you update the floor plan, you would come in here before you import the drawing, you would say, oh, these changes for this floor plan happened on September 1st, something like that, September 1st of this year, something like that. So then you can make the changes here, and then you would import the drawing, and then it would then keep that time traveling capability, keep that audit trail for the different floor plan changes. Okay. So this is important when you import the drawing. And then down here, we're just saying import spaces, yes, import workspaces. We can set it to yes as well, right? And then log level detail, we always leave at high so that when you actually do an import, you can come and see the logs. It will give you more detail in the logs, right? So any error messages or something like that, you can see those and correct those and stuff like that. Where we're getting the drawing would be in the inbox. This is important as well. The file name wildcard filter, right? We want to specify here the actual file name that we're importing or that we're going to import within the Planon application, right? So what the wildcard does is if you put in the entire file name, it will just import this file. So if you made an update to just one file, right, and you say, okay, I want to update this within the Planon application, then you would put the entire file name in here. When you click on Run CAD Import, it would just import that one file, and it would update within the Planon application the spaces and the workspaces based on this one file. If you updated the entire building, you can run the import and update all of the drawings for that building. Because the building names are consistent, you would do something like this, where you would stop at the floor and you can put an asterisk there, like so, right? So then it would pick up everything that starts with every drawing that starts with this. And then it would import that in to the Planon application. So if you were modifying an entire building, right, you can update it, you can put all the drawings up, and then you can run CAD import here, and it would update everything. It will look for all the files that started with this. So that means it will update all of these drawings here. So all 9 of these drawings. Okay, so you can do that in one go or something like that. So that's like more like for bulk importing or something, right? So that's what that wildcard is for. Okay, but again, if you were just doing one file, then you would do the whole file name like so, and you would drop that in there, and then they would just import that one file there. Okay. And then so that's important as well. So this and the date. So the date and the file name is really the only things you would be changing when you actually do a CAD import. All the other settings, which I'll go through as well, but all the other settings you really don't need to touch. It should be set and it should be good to go. The only thing is before you import, check the dates and then check the file name of the drawing. Okay? And then once you import the AutoCAD drawing, what the application does is it makes a copy of the DWG file, right? It puts it into this outbox folder here, and it writes metadata back to this DWG file. So it links the space record. Let me go to Planon here. Space management. It links the space records to the actual space polylines on the AutoCAD drawing. Okay? So it creates that link, it creates that metadata link back to the AutoCAD drawing. And then if I go back to the import, it also converts the DWG into what we call an ORJ file. The ORJ files are what you are viewing in the Planon application. So when you look at the floor plan within the application, you're not looking at the DWG. This is the ORJ file. So this is a static file. You can't move things around. Like you can't, oh, let me re-polyline this or something like that. It doesn't work. It just is a static view, or you can't move the stairs or the doors around or something like that. Okay. So any changes that needs to be done in the AutoCAD and then re-import it to the application for it to reflect here. Okay. Okay. So if I go back to the import definition, output options here. Here we are saying add a date to the output folder, right? So every time it imports, it will create a subfolder using this date that we specified here, right? And then it would then drop in that subfolder the copied version of the DWG with the metadata written back, and also the converted ORJ files. That's how we do our versioning, right? So if I go back to space and workspace here, and I go to the floor attributes section here, and if I deactivate the reference date, you'll see that for this particular floor, Andrew Hall first floor, it was imported 4 times. There were 4 changes to it, right? Initial import was back in April of 2020, and then it was revised in May of 2020, and it was revised again in March of 2021, and it was revised again in February of 2022, right? So say if we revise this drawing again as of today, so let me go back to the import definition, and I'm just going to use Bobby's here. I have this particular drawing, and then say we're going to import it as of September 1st, 2025, right? If I click on the Run CAD Import here, so I click on the Run CAD Import action on the right, you can see the spinning circle here. So it's importing the drawing now, right? Bigger drawings go a little slower, right? Smaller drawings go a little faster and stuff like that, right? So the spinning circle means importing. So we have to wait till the spinning circle is completed. I don't think this floor plan was too big, so it should finish out. It's done. Okay. So that's completed. We can take a look at the logs. So if I go to the import logs here, when you run a CAD import, you always get a verification log, and then you get an import log. In the verification log, if I select that, go to the details tab, you get like all of the details of the actual drawing itself. Put it back to today. You get the details of all the actual the drawings itself, right? And then if there are any issues or something like that, you would see it here, like maybe like duplicate polylines or a space. There's a space polyline with no space number within it or something like that. So here you can see the verification log. So you would see if the application caught any errors before it imported. So some of the errors in the drawing, if there's an error, it will not import the drawing. So you have to go fix the error first before you import the drawing. Okay. So in this case, there's no error. There's a warning, and the warning is more like this, where there's a block. There's a block where the scale is not is at 1 of 1 or something like that, right? And allow auto correction is set to no. So that's why the warning itself. Okay. Allow auto correction here. Let me go back to the import log. Allow auto correction is not here, but it might be in your production. there's a field called allow auto correction, yes or no.
Hmm.
Um, you should always set that to yes. What the auto correction does is it will, if there's any objects in the AutoCAD where it's like scaled differently for size of the drawing, right? It will auto correct it and always scale it to one or something like that when you import it, so it doesn't cause any issues. It won't be like too big or too small when you import it within the application. Okay, so that should always be set to yes. Okay. And then in the import log, you can see there was an error in the import because of the symbol here, the red X here. So in the import log, if I look at the details here, um, you can see there's some spaces here that oh, I think someone's configuring in dev maybe, so that's why the error message. So you may be temporarily unable to save changes or something. I think someone was configuring in dev, so that's why these error messages here. But this indicates that there was an error when you imported, right? And then here in the import log, you can see the different error messages and so forth, right? So it errored on one, two, three, four. It errored on five spaces. Um, so it rejected five, but it didn't change 58 of the spaces, something like that, right? So 58 of the spaces were okay. It rejected five. And then if you scroll down, you can see more of the log details. There were no workspace that came in for this particular floor plan. And then you can see like it took this uh, DWG and created one in the outbox. And you can see here it created a date of September 1st, 2025, right? And then it converted the DWG into ORJ file. So you can see here, this is the ORJ file here. Also put in the outbox, also um, put in this subfolder with the date that we specified here for September 1st, right? And then you can see the total element count that was brought into the Planon application, okay? Element count is important. We want to keep the element count low. If you exceed like 15,000 elements within the AutoCAD drawing, it'll give you a warning that says, "Oh, you exceeded the 15,000 element count. You might experience some performance issues or something like that, right?" Typically, I've seen drawings where they have like 20, 30,000 elements and it still came up okay. Like if you go to spaces and workspaces here, go to the space level, and when you displayed the floor plan, like just like so, right? You'd see how it comes up instantly because there's only like a couple thousand elements. If it's 15,000, it might take like a second, or if it's like 20, 30,000, it might like, take like 2 or 3 seconds or something like that, right? If it's like 50, 60,000, or if it's very high, it might take like 8, 9, 10 seconds, then that's not good user experience, right? So that's why we always recommend to keep the element count low and stuff like that in the AutoCAD drawing. So it doesn't have to render all these different elements and comes up a lot faster. Okay. All right, so back to the import definition. If we look at the logs, we can see that there were some errors, and then we can see the actual error message, and it identifies the space, and it also gives you the handle ID. So sometimes it doesn't identify this actual space record itself because it's not able to find certain values for it, but it will always give you the AutoCAD handle ID. And you can always look up in the AutoCAD drawing which elements it errored on based on this handle ID, right? So you can use the AutoCAD command. I think it's the handents command, AutoCAD here. So if you use this command here for AutoCAD, so you can do like an underscore select, right? And then you can put this handents in there. And then for the handle ID, you would actually put the handle ID that's defined here. That's the AutoCAD handle ID from AutoCAD. And then it would then select that particular element on the AutoCAD drawing where it's giving the error for and stuff like that. So easier for you to find, oh, this particular space polyline is giving me an issue, or this particular space number, or something like that, right? So you can see those different errors here. Okay. But once you import the drawing, you can then go to spaces and workspaces. And then you would then drill down from the property to the floor to the space level, and then you would see the floor plan here, and then you can select all on the bottom left here and then make sure everything highlights. If some things didn't highlight, that means those didn't come in or something like that. So all the spaces are highlighted, so that's good, right? And then if you did import workspaces as well, you can come to the workspace and space data tab. Under fixed workspaces, you can see the different workspaces and stuff like that there as well. Okay. But if I go back to the floor attributes now, right, you can see that if I deactivate the reference date, so I can see all the different dates it imported for, you can see there's one for September 1st. That's the one that I just did, right? So there was another revision on September 1st, and this is the new floor plan, something like that. So you can actually do your time traveling capability and toggle back in time and say, oh, let me see, show me what it looked like back in, oops, what was it? April 22nd, 2020. So back in 2020, April, let's do like March 1st of 2020, right? This is what the floor plan looked like back in March. Back in May of 2020, and this is what the floor plan looked like back then. And then you can see the different changes over time and so forth, like that, something like that. So you can do the time traveling thing there. So you can always change the reference date back to today and see what the floor plan looks like today. And so you can see, I think there's only some color changes, right? I don't really see any floor plate changes, but yeah. But if there were floor plate changes, right, where the different reconstructions going on, it would reflect those changes there. All right. So that's where in the floor attributes you can see um, the different changes over time that happen to this floor plan. And you can see here, if I select the latest one that I imported, you can see here that the drawing was in the inbox. This is where we got the drawing. And in the outbox, it created the subfolder based on the date that we specified in the CAD import definition. And it created a copy of the DWG file. And then also in that subfolder, it converted the DWG to this ORJ and also this other ORJ file as well. Okay, so that's where we get that. If I go back to the import definition, based on this date here, is when the subfolders get created, and where you can keep track of your time traveling capabilities. Right. So not necessarily need to import everything as of today, but keep in mind when you do import drawings, you need to keep in mind the date that you specified for. So that should reflect the changes, the day the changes happen or something like that. And then the wild card is only the drawings that you want to import. So you don't want to import everything, right? Because all the drawings are usually set. Just the ones that you made changes to, you want to import here. Okay. And then what we always recommend is when you have changes to a drawing, always import it into a lower environment first. Make sure there's no issues with the drawing or all the issues are fixed. And then once the drawing's clean, then you import it into production and you won't have any issues there. Okay. So you always use your lower environments to find or root out any errors that happen in the AutoCAD drawing. Okay. And then fix all those before you import into prod. All right. Okay. Any questions there?
No.
Okay. Let's do a quick recap. And then so in the drawing definition, this is where we define the actual layers of the drawing of the AutoCAD, which layers go where, right? So if I select this template of that you guys have here, and then we can go to the business objects. We want to define the floor, and then this is the floor polyline that's on the AutoCAD drawing, right? And then if we go to the spaces, this is the space polyline on the AutoCAD drawing. Under the field mappings, this is how we retrieve the space number on this particular layer, and it's M text, right? So we always have to make sure it's M text. And then same for workspaces. We go to the details. This is the workspace polyline. And then for workspace numbers, we want to get on this particular layer, and it's also going to be M text as well, right? And then everything else is construction data, like the doors, the walls, the furniture, the stairs, and so forth, right? These are all construction data that helps define the actual space and stuff like that. Once we have that, we make sure that it's in the completed status. So the checkbox here, make sure it's in the completed status. And then we go to the import definition. And the import definition is where we actually import the drawings, right? So here we want to make sure that we're using the right drawing definition. And then we have the right date applied, and then the actual file name that we want to import. Once we have that, we want to make sure under the mapping between drawing and floor, make sure that our file name is correct here, mapped to the correct property in the floor. So once we have that, we can specify a date that we want to import it for, let's say today or something like that. And then we can do the run CAD import. So we hit this action on the right here, run CAD import action. And you can see the spinning circle, so it's importing the drawing. Again, bigger drawings take a little longer, smaller drawings go a little faster, right? If it's a brand new floor, then it has to create all these spaces. So the import definition, it creates the floor record, it creates all the space records, and creates all the workspace records. So if it was new, then it has to create all these spaces and workspaces. So it might take a little longer for the first run, right? And then as you update it, depending on the changes as well, is how fast they would run as well. Okay. So once it's completed, you can go to the import logs and take a look at the logs. We always get a verification log first, and then an import log. And then you can see there that there's a warning in the verification and there's an error in the actual import. You can select that and go to details, import log details tab. And then you can scroll through here and just see what kind of errors and stuff like that are affecting the import of the drawings or something like that. Okay. All right. Once you complete the imports, you can go to spaces and workspaces, drill down from the actual property to the components level, select the floor, go to the spaces tab under here, and then you can see toggle between the data view here and the CAD integrator view to view the floor plan, right? Once you see the CAD integrator view, you can select all down below here, and it should highlight all of the spaces. Let me shrink down the text a little bit. It should highlight all the spaces that are in this list here, right? So if there were some spaces not highlighted, then that means those spaces might have issues. You can check the AutoCAD drawing, make sure there's a space polyline, make sure there's no duplicate space polyline, make sure there's a space number within it and stuff like that. Okay. And if I go to the floor attributes, you can see that I imported another version of this as of today, right? So then it puts an end date of the previous version and then creates a new version here. Again, the subfolder now is September 4th, 2025 as a subfolder here. So there's creates your time traveling capability within the space module here for you to do your audits and stuff like that. Okay. All right. For the CAD import itself, right? I would say that you can take one and then just do a copy of it and then just put your name on it, right? And then did they do it? Some import, something like that, right? And then you can use that going forward, and then you can always, so then you won't conflict with other people, and then you can always come back here and then say, okay, let me look at the logs that I've imported the drawings for and stuff like that, if there's any issues and stuff. Keep in mind the logs, they save for only 7 days. So they auto delete or auto cleanup itself every 7 days, right? So 7 days from now, you would see these logs, they would disappear or something like that. So if there's a log that you did want to keep, right? you can go to the log details here. And I think in the in production, you might have like a download log feature that you can download the log into like a PDF or something like that. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. All right. Any questions? I know there's a lot of information, but we have a recording, so you can always reference back.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it makes sense anyways. I feel like once I'm in it and start working through it, I think that would definitely probably help. So
Yep. And you can always try to import drawings in a lower environment, right? The lower environments are like a playground and stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about messing up data or something like that.
okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
definitely try it there. So yeah, any new floor plans, changes to new floor plans or existing floor plans, right? I would always try to import that into a lower environment first, make sure there's no issues with the AutoCAD. Once it's cleaned up or once its import's clean, then you can import it into production.
Okay.
All right. All right, cool. So I think that's what we have for today, unless you have any questions.
No, not yet. I have a couple floor plan updates actually that I need to make.
Okay.
So I'll probably do that now that I have a better handle on this. And I assume I could probably reach out if I have any questions with
Yes,
anything.
definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have
All right.
run into any issues or have any questions, yeah, just reach out to me. To upload the floor plan, I think I don't know if Colin set you up with WinSCP.
Um, WinSCP. I do have it here actually. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is how we upload floor plans. So through WinSCP, you can create a connection to the cloud environment that Planon's hosted on. And then for Brown, I don't know if I don't have you guys listed here. So I think Colin might have the credentials or Stephanie might have the credentials to do WinSCP for you if you don't
Okay.
have credentials already. From there, you can let me open this back up and let me see which environment I can use to show you.
So I guess once the floor plan changes are done, I don't actually upload them through Planon. I have to go through this WinSCP.
Right, you would go to WinSCP to maintain it. It's easier to maintain. I think you can also upload it through Planon as you can also upload it through Planon as well, but it's easier if it's done through WinSCP. Let
Okay.
me see if I have access to my pre-sales environment. Okay, great. So in WinSCP, you would come to something like this where you see your different folders, right? You would go to your documents folder, and underneath the documents folder, you have your CAD folder. So under the CAD folder, you would have your, let me go to spaces in workspaces here, flow attributes. Under your CAD folder, you would have your CAD inbox, your CAD outbox, right? So this is the inbox here, the outbox here, right? And then if I go to the inbox, you have your different drawings probably located here. And then if I go to the outbox, you'll have your different subfolders with the different dates and stuff like that there, where you would see these. And then this is how you can find the actual um, ORJs and stuff like that, and DWGs and stuff like that. Yeah.
So would these folders, would I have to create them or would Planon
No,
create them
Planon
for
would
me?
create them as you import them. Yeah, Planon would create these
Gotcha.
subfolders. Yeah, so these are all automated. So all of these subfolders here with the dates, these are all created automatically based on
My
this
import
date.
definition.
Yeah, based on
Yeah.
that date that you specify there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. If you did not have WinSCP, you can still upload the drawing. If you go to the drawing definitions TSI here, and you can then click on add and then upload a drawing here. Then you can pick a drawing, and then in the target directory, you would pick your CAD inbox
Hmm.
like so, and then you can click OK. Once you click OK, it's already uploaded there. So you can really just cancel this. you don't necessarily need to save it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how you can upload drawings here too, using this feature here. But it's usually easier to maintain in the using this WinSCP tool because then you can see your drawings and stuff like that and move things around from your computer on the left to uh to the cloud folder on the right. So you can drag and drop and stuff like that. Or you can take the drawings from the cloud and move it to your computer and stuff like that. So you can do the drag and drop and easier to maintain that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
guess
yeah,
I'll have to talk to Colin about setting that up.
yeah, yeah. I think they should have the credentials. If not, let me know, or they would know how to reset it as well. So they can probably reset it and get you the credentials or something like that.
Okay. All right, cool.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Again, try this out in the lower environment, and then if you have any questions, just let me know. We can touch base and stuff like that and go through it.
Cool. All right, that works. I appreciate the help. So thank you for
All
your time.
right. Cool. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.